My husband drained every last dollar from our joint account and ran off to Vegas with his brother and some woman named Crystal. I just sat there real quiet, smiling to myself, and 4 days later his phone rang nonstop. Baby, what the hell did you do to us? My revenge was ice cold and perfect. The day I thought I could finally rest easy was the same exact day my husband took every cent we had saved up together without leaving me so much as a sticky note. Margaret, Maggie Rose Patterson. She just sat there frozen solid for what felt like forever. She was sitting in her worn-out recliner, the same one she bought when they first got married 32 years ago, using money from her first real paycheck working as a grocery store cashier. Right there in front of her, that cell phone screen was lit up with a notification that made her blood run ice cold. Available balance, $0. She stared at it once, then twice, then a third time. Then she read it again. Her hands started shaking real bad, not 'cause she was getting old, though she was 58 years strong, but from something way deeper down. That sick, twisted feeling you get when your gut knows the truth, but your heart just won't accept it. She grabbed that phone and called up the bank right away. Some automated voice answered first. Then a real person started asking her security questions. They told her point blank the transactions had been made online. Wire transfers adding up to big money, over $210,000 total. It was everything they had built together, her nest egg, her safety blanket, the only cushion she had left in this world. And where'd all that money go? She asked, her voice breaking up like shattered glass, knowing the answer already but needing someone else to say it out loud. The money got transferred straight into an account with the name Marcus James Patterson on it. Ma'am, the bank lady said, sounding bored as hell. You want to file a fraud claim or something? Maggie didn't say nothing back at all. She just hung up that phone without another word. The quiet filled up every corner of that house. All you could hear was the ticking from that old kitchen clock and the humming from a busted light bulb down the hall. Outside, some ice cream truck was playing its little song, totally clueless about the giant hole that just opened up inside her chest. Then that landline started ringing, that old dinosaur phone she kept around just out of habit. Hello, she said, her voice sounding dead and flat. Maggie, girl, did you see Marcus's Facebook post? It was Linda's excited voice, her neighbor from 3 doors down who she'd known since forever. He's out there in Las Vegas, honey, eating at them fancy buffets with his brother and some blonde woman. Lord have mercy, they living like royalty out there. He's wearing a suit and everything. Maggie swallowed so hard it hurt. Her whole soul felt like it just left her body for a second there. She walked real slow to the bedroom, pulled open the nightstand drawer where she kept that old tablet, and went searching for her husband's profile. She wasn't big on all that social media nonsense, but she followed him from a distance, like someone peeking through curtains at a life that didn't include them no more. There he was, Marcus, her husband of 32 years. The man she married when she was 26 years old with stars in her eyes. The same man she worked double shifts for so he could start his construction business. The same man she stood by when his business failed twice. He was grinning big, holding up a whiskey glass, wearing a crisp white button-down shirt, with his arm around some young blonde woman in a tight red dress, and his brother Danny standing next to them looking smug as hell. The caption said, "Vegas baby. New chapter, new life. I earned this." And right there in the comments, that woman Crystal had written, "Good things come to those who take what they deserve. Thanks for the opportunity, sweetie," with a bunch of money bag emojis next to it. You know what hurts worse than being betrayed? It's being replaced like you never mattered at all. Like 32 years of your life meant absolutely nothing to nobody. Maggie didn't cry none. She didn't scream or throw nothing across the room. She just stood there gripping that tablet like it was burning a hole through her hand. Then, with nobody around to witness it, she smiled. But it was a different kind of smile, like she finally understood something she'd been avoiding for way too many years. Far away under them bright neon lights, and between them casino floors of Las Vegas, Marcus raised his glass high without feeling one bit guilty. "See," Crystal said, taking a sip of that expensive champagne stuff. "It was smart taking the money when we did. She's getting old anyway. Better we enjoy it before it all goes to her medical bills and nursing home crap." Danny, his brother, let out this mean, ugly laugh. "Dumb old broad. She don't even know how to use a ATM machine properly. She wasn't gonna do nothing useful with that cash anyway." Marcus didn't say nothing at all. He just looked out at the strip with his eyes all glossy. But something was churning around deep inside him, though he kept real quiet, just like he learned to do since he was a young man and broke, and Maggie would tell him, "Hold tight, babe. We'll figure it out tomorrow." The walls inside Maggie's house felt heavier that night. Everything sat in its usual spot, but nothing felt right no more. Up on the mantel were all them photos of Marcus. Their wedding day photo, the day they bought their first house, the anniversary trip to the Grand Canyon, every Christmas card they ever sent out. Everything she ever did, she did thinking they were partners in it. At 26, she worked nights at the hospital so he could buy tools for his business. At 30, she co-signed loans that put her credit in the toilet when his company went under. At 40, she helped him start over again from scratch, working 2 jobs while he found his footing. Maggie cooked for him, washed his work clothes covered in dust and cement, packed his lunches every morning. And still he just drifted further and further away. "Babe, you don't get how the world works now," he'd say, brushing her off. "Things ain't like they used to be. Danny and I got big plans coming up. You'll always have a place in my life, but you can't hold me back forever." A week before she found out about the betrayal, Maggie had tried surprising Marcus at the construction site where he said he was working overtime. She brought him homemade meatloaf and mashed potatoes, his favorite meal. She drove 40 minutes in traffic. When she got there, the site was empty and dark. The security guard told her nobody had worked there in 3 weeks. Maggie swallowed hard and drove herself home. She didn't take the freeway. She needed to feel that air hitting her face, even if it was hot and smelled like exhaust fumes. She thought about every meal she skipped, every early morning she woke up at 4 a.m. for the breakfast shift, every single penny she saved for their future together. That same night, Linda came by to visit with some apple pie and coffee. "You've always been the strong one, Maggie. Don't let this tear you apart completely. Marcus is just going through some midlife crisis thing. Maybe he'll snap out of it eventually." Maggie let out a long sigh, her eyes staring off into nothing. "You think men ever regret it, Linda? Really and truly regret it?" "Yeah, girl, they do. When their wife ain't around no more, they realize everything they took for granted all them years." "Well, I hope it ain't too late when he figures it out. So what you gonna do about all this?" Maggie looked up. In her eyes was something different, something that hadn't been sitting there before now. "I'm gonna smile just like he taught me to do all these years." Linda's face scrunched up, confused. "Smile? What the hell you mean by that?" "I've cried enough tears to fill a bathtub, Linda. Now I'm gonna smile in silence, 'cause I got nothing left to lose in this world. And when a woman's got nothing left to lose, she becomes real dangerous to them that wronged her." You ever been invisible in your own marriage? Where you cook, clean, work, sacrifice everything. And then one day you realize you were just an ATM machine with a heartbeat. Meanwhile, night was falling down in Las Vegas. Marcus was stepping out the hotel shower when he heard Crystal's voice out on the balcony, talking on her phone real animated. Yeah, we pulled it off perfectly. The old hag never saw it coming at all. The money's sitting right here in the account. Tomorrow we open up that LLC in Nevada, and we cut Marcus loose for good. Yes, obviously. He thinks we're all partners together. What a complete idiot. Marcus just froze right there. He didn't move one single inch. He felt them water droplets turn to ice on his skin. He didn't say nothing at all. He just went back to the bedroom acting like he didn't hear a damn thing. He laid himself down next to Crystal, who was pretending to be asleep already. He closed his eyes tight, but something had shifted deep inside. And he didn't know yet that the worst was still heading his way. Back in Riverside, California, Maggie was making herself a cup of chamomile tea. The night was thick and heavy with humidity. The street lights were flickering on and off like usual. Outside, dogs were barking at each other over some garbage. Inside, she picked up her journal, the one she used to write down recipes and grocery lists. She wrote something down with her shaky handwriting. This ain't the end of nothing at all. It's the beginning of my silence, and my silence is gonna hurt way more than any scream ever could from my mouth. Then she closed up that journal, laid down in her bed, and for the first time in a real long time, she slept without crying one single tear. And while she was sleeping in her modest little house, her husband in a fancy hotel suite in Vegas checked his phone real quick. He saw a bank notification sitting there waiting. Account frozen due to suspicious activity reported. What the hell? He mumbled out, staring hard at that screen. The first crack had just formed right there, and Marcus didn't have no clue that his wife, in total silence, had already begun to make her moves against him. Sometimes pain don't scream out loud at all. Sometimes pain just sits back, watches everything unfold, and waits for the exact perfect moment to strike. And that moment was just getting started now. The night hadn't completely left Riverside yet. There was still that sticky, heavy air hanging between them apartment buildings and them cracked up sidewalks everywhere. Maggie got herself up at the crack of dawn, her joints aching like they did every single morning. But this time around, she didn't feel old at all inside. Something brand new was beating inside her chest. It wasn't rage or sadness neither. It was determination, the kind her soul had never known before in her whole entire life. While she was heating up water in that electric kettle, she stared hard at the steam rising up. The whistle of that boiling water took her way back, many years back, to the very first day she knew what it was like to build something with someone. She was 26 years old when she married Marcus at the courthouse downtown. A young woman with long brown hair, hopeful eyes, and hands that weren't rough yet from work. By that age right there, she knew what love was supposed to feel like. Or at least what she thought it was supposed to feel like back then. At 27 years old, she started working double shifts at the diner and the hospital both. Marcus was trying to start his construction company. He promised they would build an empire together, that he would take care of her when the money started rolling in good. They lasted 8 years of struggle together. The year his first business failed completely, he disappeared emotionally. He stopped talking, stopped touching her, stopped being present. Maggie didn't complain none. She just clenched up her jaw real tight, put on her work shoes, and went out looking for more hours to pick up anywhere. She supported Marcus through everything, carrying the weight of both their lives while he figured himself out. When he felt like giving up, she told him stories about her own parents who lost everything in the recession but rebuilt from nothing. No savings account to speak of, but they had each other. No fancy vacations, but they had Sunday dinners together. No retirement plan, but they had loyalty that meant something. You know what they don't tell you about getting older? It's not your body that betrays you first. It's the people you trusted most who make you feel like you don't matter no more. When Marcus turned 40 years old, one of his contractor buddies introduced him to Crystal. A woman with bleached blonde hair, fake nails, and a smile straight out of a toothpaste commercial. From the very first time Maggie laid eyes on her at a barbecue, she felt this knot in her stomach. Not from jealousy or envy, but 'cause this woman had the look of someone who only knew how to take from folks, never to give nothing back to nobody. Crystal came from a family that pretended to have more than they really had in life. Her vocabulary was full of business talk and investment jargon. The first time she visited Maggie's house, she looked around with barely hidden disgust. What a cozy little place. Very vintage vibes, Crystal said with sarcasm dripping off every word. Crystal, seeing the kitchen that Maggie had personally renovated on a tight budget, made a comment in a low voice that Maggie would never forget for the rest of her days. I don't know how anyone lives in a place this small and outdated. This looks like my grandma's house, not a grown man's home to me. Maggie smiled like she always did, but something cracked inside her chest that day. Years passed on by and Crystal gained more and more influence over Marcus. First, she suggested that Maggie didn't need to come to business dinners no more. Then that she shouldn't voice her opinions on their investments and decisions. Then that she shouldn't attend certain events 'cause she didn't fit in with the new crowd they were running with. Marcus, all confused and flattered by the attention, slowly distanced himself from her completely. One night, already spending most of his time with Danny and Crystal's crew, Marcus came home real late. It was the last real conversation they had before everything fell apart. She had prepared pot roast with gravy, his favorite meal in the whole world. Babe, Crystal says you're too clingy and controlling, that you don't let me grow as a man and entrepreneur. I just want us to be happy together, Marcus, Maggie said, watching her own food get cold on the plate in front of her. I don't need you managing every little thing I do, he replied like that was supposed to hurt less somehow. I'm my own man now, and men forget who stood by them when they had nothing. Maggie thought but didn't say it out loud. She didn't cry at all. She just got up from that table, cleared everything off, and told him to take the leftovers with him if he wanted. The following months were just a parade of small rejections, one after another after another. Crystal began managing Marcus's finances, convinced him to open new bank accounts, and told him not to tell his wife everything that was going on with the money. According to her way of thinking, Maggie was a simple woman who wouldn't understand modern business practices at all. Marcus, wrapped up in a mixture of ambition and emotional manipulation from all sides, agreed to it all without question. Maggie began to notice things weren't adding up right. A bank statement that showed withdrawals she didn't recognize. A letter that never arrived in the mail about refinancing. A life insurance policy she didn't remember signing off on at all. That's when she decided to talk to Howard about it all. Howard was an old family friend, a retired CPA who had helped them with taxes for decades, and now lived alone in a condo full of old financial magazines and faded baseball cards. She reached out to him without telling him too much about what was really going on. Howard How can I find out if someone is using our joint accounts for strange things I don't know about? Are you in some kind of trouble, Maggie? No, but I feel like my husband ain't my husband no more at all. Howard looked at her real carefully, asked for the few documents she had with her, and for weeks he reviewed transactions, statements, and transfers till one evening he invited her over to his place. Maggie, Marcus added Crystal as an authorized user on your joint account. You didn't sign nothing for this, but somehow the authorization is sitting there in the system. But I never agreed to that in my life. Someone forged documents, and they've been taking money out bit by bit for 8 whole months now. Maggie said nothing back to him. She took them papers, put them in her purse, and left in complete silence without saying goodbye. That night, the pain didn't let her sleep one single wink. Not because of the money itself, but because of the truth sitting behind it all. Her husband hadn't just been manipulated by somebody else. He had become an active part of the betrayal against her. He robbed his own wife. When you've been married over 30 years, you think you know someone. But sometimes the person sleeping next to you is a complete stranger who's just been waiting for the right moment to walk away. In the following days after that discovery, Crystal and Danny organized the trip to Vegas for all of them. Marcus, with his business barely breaking even, sold his truck and then suggested using Maggie's savings for the trip. It's our money together, Crystal said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Besides, your wife ain't gonna use it anytime soon anyway. Don't be stupid about this opportunity. I don't know about this. It's everything we got saved up for emergencies. And why is she hoarding it like some paranoid old lady? You're her husband. You ain't stealing from her. You're just using what's yours early, that's all it is. Marcus hesitated for just a second, but then he went ahead and did it anyway. One night from a laptop at Danny's apartment, he transferred all the money in one single move. He did it quick without thinking too much, like someone pulling out a tooth without any numbing medicine. He finished it up, took a deep breath, closed that laptop, and didn't look back at what he'd done at all. Maggie discovered the betrayal the very next morning. She didn't cry about it. She didn't scream out loud or call him up. She just wrote one sentence in her journal. My husband didn't die today, but the wife in me did. From then on forward, everything changed inside her completely. Her body kept aging like normal, but her spirit hardened up like concrete. She began to walk different, her shoulders back straighter than before. She started making phone calls, checking emails, visiting offices all around town. Something was being prepared behind the scenes carefully. While in Vegas, Marcus walked them casino floors, believing he had won something big in life. In Riverside, California, his wife was weaving the web that would return everything they had taken from her, and then some. And Crystal was already planning how to disappear without a trace once the money was clean. What Marcus didn't know at all was that Maggie was no longer the woman he remembered from back in the day. That woman had died already. In her place remained a wounded wife, but an alert one now. And when a wounded wife awakens to the truth, there is no hell on earth she is unwilling to walk through to make things right. The betrayal no longer hurt her no more like it did at first. What hurt was the certainty of having been invisible for years, of having been used up completely, of having been erased, like she had never mattered one single bit to nobody. But Maggie was not willing to disappear in silence like some old ghost. Because what wives keep quiet about can also destroy just as easy as any weapon. Maggie said nothing at all to nobody. Not that time around, nor the next time, nor the one after that neither. Her silence was no longer the kind that bleeds inside where nobody can see it happening. It was a sharp silence now, one that observes everything, registers it all, and calculates every single move ahead. The words dried up in her throat like they didn't make sense no more to say out loud. Because when a wife understands that she has been replaced by a younger version, she don't scream out loud in public. She transforms into something else entirely. Marcus didn't notice the difference at all, or he didn't want to notice it happening right under his nose. He was too busy living the life he had dreamed about for years. A life that didn't smell like home cooking or fresh coffee brewing. A life where the voice that woke him up didn't say, "Good morning, honey," but instead said, "Hey, babe," in a high-pitched fake voice, a clean, shiny, and empty life. Crystal settled into his world like she had always been its rightful owner from day one. And he, all mesmerized, let her do it without question. He was fascinated by how she spoke with words Maggie never used in her vocabulary, how she walked confidently in them high heels everywhere, how she referred to things like everything already belonged to her. But behind her easy laugh and filtered Instagram photos was a subtle, cruel and precise machine working overtime. Crystal knew exactly what she wanted, and she wanted it fast as possible. A bank account, a credit line, and a man who could finance her lifestyle indefinitely. You spend decades building a life with someone, and they can destroy it all in a single weekend. That's what getting older teaches you. Trust is just a word until it's tested. The first comments from Crystal came disguised as helpful suggestions. "Honey, why does your wife always gotta have an opinion on every little thing we do? I don't want our future to be dragged down by poverty mindset thinking," she said while doing her nails in Danny's living room. Marcus let out an uncomfortable laugh. It's not that she wants to control things. It's just hard for her to let go, you know? She's always been like that her whole life with me. It ain't about letting go. It's about holding you hostage with guilt. Women like your wife think they're saints for standing by their man, but they don't realize that the past don't give nobody the right to drag others down forever. I don't want that energy around me or around you or around our future plans together. Little by little, Crystal began deciding when Marcus could go home, and when he couldn't leave her sight. First, it was that they were too busy with business meetings to worry about. Then that it was better to just text Maggie instead of visiting in person. And finally that she didn't feel comfortable being around Maggie, 'cause she was judgmental and negative all the time. Marcus accepted everything she said without pushback. And every time Maggie asked why he didn't come home as often no more, he lowered his head down. "We got too much going on right now, babe. You know, business stuff, investment opportunities we gotta handle quick." Maggie only nodded her head, but there was no longer any naive look in her eyes at all. She was starting to put pieces together like someone solving a puzzle in the dark. Danny, Marcus's brother, didn't take long to get involved in things neither, never with direct insults, but always with carefully chosen phrases to sound reasonable, but with just the right edge to cut deep. "Maggie, I'm just being real with you, but didn't you ever think about updating your style or something? I mean, you're getting up there in age now. This whole housewife look ain't doing you no favors, and with that money y'all got saved up, you could invest in yourself a little, right?" Maggie looked Danny dead in the eye. She didn't blink, didn't say nothing back at all, but something inside her hardened up like steel. That day right there, she understood that it wasn't that they wanted her out of the way temporarily. It was that they never wanted her in the picture to begin with from the start. One Sunday afternoon, during a family cookout organized by Danny, Maggie decided to speak her mind directly to her husband. She waited for the moment Crystal went to the restroom, and Danny was distracted flipping burgers on the grill. She looked at Marcus with the same love as always, but her voice didn't tremble no more at all. Marcus, are you absolutely sure this woman is right for you? Have you noticed how she looks at you when you're not paying attention? How she talks about me behind my back? Marcus swallowed hard. Crystal had just come out of the restroom. Danny had stopped flipping burgers. The atmosphere shifted like when a thunderstorm rolls in fast. And then Marcus exploded out loud in front of everybody. That's enough, Maggie. You're jealous. 'Cause I got other people in my life now who support my dreams. You won't say it out loud, but you think it every damn day. You never wanted anyone else to matter to me besides you and your boring life. Maggie didn't defend herself one single bit. She didn't even flinch or react. She just lowered her gaze to her paper plate, put down her fork, and in that silence, she knew she had lost him for good this time. When they said goodbye that afternoon, nobody hugged her at all. Marcus didn't even walk her to her car. Upon arriving home alone, she carefully took off her shoes like she didn't want to bother nobody. Even though she was completely alone in that house, she sat on her couch and thought about the last time her husband had said, "I love you," without her having to say it first. She couldn't remember when that actually was anymore. The following weeks were a hell disguised as normal routine life. Crystal and Danny began to visit Marcus more at the construction sites during the day regularly. They brought him lunch, talked business strategy, and suggested investments he should make with their money. One day, Crystal asked for full access to his bank accounts so she could better organize business expenses for tax purposes. "Trust me completely," she said, unbuttoning her blouse in front of him slowly. "Or are we not a real team together here?" Marcus, trapped between lust and stupidity, said yes like he always did with her. Maggie, meanwhile, didn't stay still doing nothing at all. She knew something was seriously wrong deep down, but she didn't know how to prove it yet with evidence. That's when she reached out to her neighbor, Linda, a woman who had been a bookkeeper for 30 years at an insurance company and was now retired, teaching neighborhood folks how to balance checkbooks and avoid scams. "Linda, I need you to explain something to me, please. How can I tell if someone is messing with my bank accounts without permission?" Linda frowned up her face. "Your husband?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you have access to your online banking statements at all?" "They don't send me paper ones no more like they used to." "What about wire transfers? Can you see them online?" "I've never made one in my entire life. I don't even know how to do that stuff." For several nights straight, Linda taught Maggie how to access the bank website on her laptop computer, how to review all transactions, and how to identify deposits and withdrawals that didn't make sense. The first time she saw the list of recent transactions, Maggie felt the whole world falling on top of her hard. Large amounts going out, recent dates, transfers that matched up perfectly with the days Marcus said he was working late or meeting with clients. Money leaving without no explanation at all to her. "He told me it was for business expenses and equipment. He said it was for investing in the company's future growth." "Maggie, it ain't business expenses at all. It's theft, plain and simple as that." Her heart broke into pieces right there, too. But she didn't cry about it at all. Instead, she asked for a notebook and began writing down every single transaction: date, time, amount, destination. Every dollar stolen had a name and a face attached to it now. They say women over 50 become invisible in this society. But let me tell you something. Invisible don't mean powerless. Sometimes the most dangerous woman in the room is the one nobody's paying attention to no more. One Friday evening, when everything seemed completely lost for good, Linda showed her something else important. See this transaction right here on the screen? They signed your name here to activate Crystal as an authorized user, but the signature ain't yours at all. It's a bad copy of your real signature. Maggie touched the computer screen like she was touching an open wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. They didn't even bother to hide it good enough. So what are you going to do about all this now? Maggie closed her laptop, took a deep breath in and said, "Nothing at all. Not yet anyway. Let them think they won." Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Marcus began to feel real uneasy inside his chest. Not from guilt about Maggie, but 'cause Crystal no longer looked at him the same way no more at all. She had changed up completely. She no longer kissed him with any real feeling behind it. She spent hours on her phone laughing to herself about something private. And Danny no longer bothered to pretend he respected Marcus at all no more. One night, Marcus heard a conversation between Crystal and Danny while pretending to be asleep in bed. It's basically done now. Why keep pretending anymore with this fool? Soon as we get back home, we're cashing out everything and ditching him for good. And if he finds out what we've been planning, he's slow as molasses. He won't even notice nothing till it's way too late. And if he does figure it out, so what? The old lady is probably gonna croak soon anyway. Who the hell is gonna defend him against us? Maggie from Riverside began to move with surgical precision now. She visited a bank office in person, requested the complete statements for the past year, printed them all out, and put them in labeled folders. Then she went to the county recorder's office to ask if there were properties under her name that she didn't remember signing for at all. There she discovered something even worse than she imagined before. Marcus had tried to refinance their house as collateral for a business loan using altered documents with her forged signature on them. He didn't succeed cause of a technicality that caught the fraud, but he had definitely tried to do it behind her back. That day Maggie didn't go straight home at all. She walked to an old church at the edge of the neighborhood, not to pray to God, just to sit on the wooden bench and look at the stained glass windows. Give me patience, Lord, not to forgive him just yet, but not to destroy him with my own two hands neither. Silence wrapped around her like a blanket. When she came back home, she turned on the radio, played an old blues station, and began to knit something. But what she was knitting wasn't a scarf or a blanket. It was revenge sown with patience. The seeds of betrayal were already planted deep, and they were growing fast underground. The harvest was coming real soon. Maggie knew it in her bones. She felt it in the way the wind blew through the cracks in the door, like it was coming to warn her that everything that had been buried in silence would soon sprout up into the light. The early morning hours weighed less on her shoulders now. The cold didn't bother her no more at all. She just counted the days, not with anxiety, but with strategy and calmness, like someone sharpening a knife real slow, knowing they will use it at the exact perfect moment. One morning, while vacuuming the living room with the old Hoover that had lasted forever, she decided to move the recliner to clean underneath it properly. Beneath it were dust bunnies, old receipts, a dried-up pen, and a crumpled white envelope tucked into a plastic shopping bag. She was gonna throw it all away without looking twice, but something inside her screamed at her to check it first before tossing. First, she opened the bag carefully. Inside was a document folded up. She read it twice without fully understanding what it said at first. It listed her full legal name, her address, and a signature similar to hers but not quite right. Then she read the header at the top, beneficiary change form for life insurance. She felt something squeeze her chest real tight suddenly. She sat on the floor with the document spread out on her legs and read it again real carefully this time. It was a beneficiary change form where she supposedly agreed to remove herself as the primary beneficiary and replace herself with Crystal Martinez as the new sole beneficiary. And at the bottom a signature, her signature forged in blue ink. She felt the silence of the house way more than ever before in her life. Only the clocks ticking and the distant sound of a lawnmower outside broke the quiet. She didn't cry. She wasn't even surprised no more. But this time, something did break inside her that couldn't be fixed. It wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the confirmation of how far it had all gone. She called Howard up on the phone. "Come over to my house right now, please." "What happened, Maggie?" "I found what you needed to see with your own eyes." 2 hours later, Howard was sitting in her kitchen with the document in his wrinkled hand. He read it carefully, shaking his head in disbelief the whole time. "This is not only illegal as hell, it's dangerous for your life, Maggie. If something happened to you, Crystal would get everything. The house, the accounts, the insurance payout, all of it." "Do you think it was Marcus who did this himself?" Howard stayed silent for a long minute. He placed the paper on the table between them. "This isn't your signature, Maggie. And you would never agree to this in a million years. It's obviously forged by someone. The most serious part is that this is a copy, which means the original might have already been filed with the insurance company. You know what's terrifying about getting older? It's not death that scares you. It's realizing the person you trusted most was planning for your death before you even got sick." Maggie stared at her own hands, wrinkled by the years of hard work, stained by age spots, but still steady and strong. She remembered the day they finally paid off the mortgage on the house. 32 years of effort, skipped meals, bargain shopping, working in the freezing cold and blazing heat, dealing with difficult customers, enduring disrespect from bosses, all to have something of her own that nobody could take away from her. "He wanted me dead on paper," she said without raising her voice at all. Howard looked up at her face. He didn't know if it was a metaphor or a literal truth she was speaking right then. The silence between them was so long and heavy that the dripping of the kitchen faucet became the only sound in the room. "And now what are you planning to do about all this?" Maggie smiled slowly. The same smile Marcus didn't know how to read in time to save himself. "Now I'm gonna bury him, but he'll still be awake and breathing when I do it to him." Not even 3 days had passed since that discovery when she received an unexpected call from Dr. Chin, the physician at the clinic where Maggie had her annual checkups done. "I need you to come in right away, Mrs. Patterson. Today if you can possibly make it." She felt her legs go weak underneath her body. She walked to the medical center with the same dignity with which she had faced everything in her life so far. She entered the office in her usual clothing, her cardigan buttoned up, and the small purse where she kept all her important papers. The doctor greeted her kindly, but without much hope in his expression. In his gaze was a compassion that smelled like bad news coming. "We ran some follow-up tests on that blood work from last month, and the results are not good at all, I'm afraid." She didn't respond right away. She just looked at him expecting what she somehow already knew deep down inside. "You have a form of lymphoma, Mrs. Patterson. It's in a progressed stage already. It pains me deeply to tell you this way, but there's no time for sugarcoating the truth here. Your immune system is seriously compromised. We estimate you have about 8 months left, Maybe a year if treatment goes well. Maggie froze solid. She stared at a fixed point on the wall. A small water stain shaped like a butterfly. Not a single tear, not a single question came out her mouth at all. Do you understand what I'm telling you right now? I understand it costs me everything to die with my dignity still intact. The doctor shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. There are treatment options available to you. We can start chemotherapy and radiation, but it's not certain you'll respond well to it. The treatment is real aggressive and expensive too, even with insurance. Does it make me die faster than 8 months? Not necessarily, but it might make the time you have left more difficult. Then no thank you. I don't like the thought of death catching me in a hospital gown surrounded by machines. The doctor didn't know what to say back to that. He had never seen anyone take the news of their own death with such complete composure before. Maggie stood up slowly, took her purse, and before leaving the office, she turned back to him. 8 months is plenty of time. For what I have to do, it's more than enough time left. She walked back home, not because she couldn't afford an Uber ride, but because she needed to feel the neighborhood around her one more time. She wanted every step to take her back to her roots, her history, her purpose in this life. She crossed the street where she used to walk holding Marcus's hand when they were young and broke. She passed the old diner where she worked graveyard shifts for minimum wage. She waved at Mrs. Chun, the flower shop lady, who had no idea what news Maggie just got, but smiled anyway. When she arrived home, she went straight to her bedroom. She pulled out a wooden oak chest hidden under the bed. Inside was her journal with notes, old love letters from when Marcus was sweet, receipts from their early years, and an old photo album where she kept the only pictures she had of them as a young married couple when he still looked at her like she hung the moon. She looked at them for a long time, then turned on the stove, put water on to boil for tea, and as the steam rose up, she murmured to herself quietly, "No more crying about it. Now the real work begins for sure." The first thing she did was go with Howard to file an official complaint, not as a wife, but as a victim of financial elder abuse. They reported the forgery of her signature, the attempt to steal her property and life insurance, and attached all the evidence they had collected. Then they requested the immediate freezing of all joint bank accounts where unauthorized activity had occurred. To achieve this, they used a state law that allowed the stopping of financial transactions if elder financial abuse was suspected by authorities. It wasn't easy at all to do, but Howard knew the system inside and out. He had lost faith in justice years ago, but for Maggie, he was willing to dust off his briefcase one final time. "Are you absolutely ready for what's coming your way after this?" he asked as they signed all the legal papers at the courthouse. "I was born ready for this moment. I just didn't know it till right now." After that, Maggie went to the dollar store, bought a new journal bound in black leather, and started writing what would be her final testimony. Not one for weeping and self-pity, but one for documentation of the truth. On the first page, she wrote in her neat handwriting, "To my husband Marcus, I married you with hope in my heart. I gave you my life with unconditional love, and you ripped away my dignity without blinking an eye once. This is not revenge for revenge's sake. It is justice. And justice is all I have left to die in peace with." When you're 58 and dying, you realize something powerful. You got nothing left to lose and everything left to say. And a woman with nothing to lose is the most dangerous force on God's green earth. Meanwhile, in Vegas, Marcus and Crystal continued to pretend everything was perfect. They uploaded daily stories, made reels with filters on them, and showed off drinks they couldn't even afford without stolen money. But the tension was growing more and more obvious by the hour. Crystal no longer shared the hotel bed with him at night. Danny spent all his time on his phone doing shady business. And Marcus felt something slipping away from him fast, like an internal alarm that wouldn't stop ringing in his head constantly. One night while searching his email for a confirmation code, he found a hidden folder sitting there in the trash. It was an automatic backup of Crystal's text messages with someone else. At first he thought it was junk mail, but when he opened it up, he read what he wasn't supposed to see at all. Crystal, we almost got everything set up perfectly. The idiot doesn't suspect a damn thing. Unknown number. And the account transfer? Crystal, I don't give a shit honestly. Let him rot alone. I'm not staying with someone who smells like his pathetic wife's guilt trips all the damn time. Marcus felt his stomach drop straight to the floor. He closed the laptop real quick, said nothing out loud, and pretended to sleep, but he couldn't close his eyes that whole entire night. And for the first time in a real long time, he thought about Maggie. About her voice, about the way she used to call him sweetheart, even when he didn't deserve it, about her pot roast dinners, about how she laughed at stupid TV shows, about how she used to rub his shoulders when he was stressed out, and about how she used to tell him, "Nobody will ever have your back like I do, Marcus." He wanted to call her right then and there, but he didn't do it. Maggie, for her part, expected nothing from him anymore at all. There was no longer any tenderness in her waiting, only cold planning. She visited more legal offices, made more official calls, and activated the fraud investigation process. She filed reports with the State Attorney General's office about elder financial abuse. The system was slow as molasses, but it activated eventually. An alert was issued flagging Marcus's accounts for suspicious activity. They wouldn't arrest him right away, but they would make him accountable for every penny eventually. In her black leather journal, Maggie wrote, "There is no justice more complete than that which is delivered without screaming or begging. I will watch him lose everything without lifting a finger against him. Karma is not paid back with violence. It is served cold with patience and time." And so the second betrayal didn't break her down at all. It converted her into something stronger, colder, freer than ever before in her life. The wife in her had died already, but the woman had finally woken up after decades of sleep. It was only a matter of days until Marcus returned to California, and he had absolutely no idea of the earthquake that was waiting for him back home. Marcus believed that hell was a place with fire, demons, and eternal screaming. He didn't imagine it could be as cold as a declined credit card at a steakhouse, or as humiliating as having your bank account frozen in front of strangers watching. It all started with a denial at the restaurant payment terminal. Then another card got declined. And another one after that. In less than 48 hours, he found himself completely empty-handed. No cash, no active accounts, and with two people looking at him like he was a homeless bum they had just picked up off the strip. Crystal yelled at him in the middle of the casino floor in front of dozens of tourists who stopped to stare at the drama unfolding. "You worthless piece of shit. What did you do with all the money? I told you not to trust your broke-ass wife with anything important. Now you've screwed us all over completely." Marcus tried to speak up and explain, but there weren't enough words to explain what he didn't even understand himself yet. He only knew something was very seriously wrong, that the accounts were frozen solid, that his name had been linked to a financial fraud investigation, and that he had to report to authorities as soon as possible. That night, Danny looked at him with a mixture of disgust and annoyance. "I warned you about this, Marcus. This broke loser ain't even good for washing dishes. I'm getting my own room. I'm not sleeping in this dump with you tonight. Crystal followed him right out the door. Not a word, not a goodbye, not even a fake apology. Marcus stayed in the hotel room all alone, with a half-empty suitcase and the echo of betrayal ringing in his ears non-stop. Meanwhile, in Riverside, Maggie was weaving the last threads of her plan like a master craftsman. Everything fit together perfectly now. Every movement made complete sense. Howard helped her gather the necessary documents to activate the interstate fraud alert, relying on the complaint of elder abuse and identity theft. He contacted an old colleague of his, Mrs. Rivera, a senior investigator in the state's Financial Crimes Division, and managed to activate a mandatory review of all transactions for Marcus's return to California. It wasn't revenge. There was no hate in her heart at all. There was only justice being served. In her black leather journal she wrote, "Sometimes a wife's love also has to wound, not out of hatred, but for a hard lesson, because what is allowed continues, and what continues destroys everything. I didn't marry a thief, but the world turned him into one. And if I have to be the one to stop him cold, so be it for both our sakes." Linda accompanied her in silence through many of those legal procedures. She was no longer just her neighbor anymore. She had become her partner in all of this. Doesn't it hurt you deep down, Maggie? Of course it hurts like hell. It hurts like ripping off my own skin. But there are pains that heal you in the end. You think betrayal is the worst thing that can happen in a marriage? Let me tell you something. The worst thing is realizing you were alone the whole time and just didn't know it yet. The meeting at the Financial Crimes Office was a spectacle of pure shame for Marcus. They made him sit in a cold, windowless room with a state investigator and a legal advocate who spoke in a robotic tone. They explained that there was an active complaint filed in California, that the funds had been frozen by a court order, and that he had to account for every transaction upon his return home immediately. Marcus left with a defeated, broken face. He felt everything crumbling around him fast. He thought of his wife for the first time in months. He thought of her voice, her disappointed look in her eyes, and he knew that she knew that all of this came directly from her doing. And then, like a lost child, he dialed her number with shaking hands. "Maggie," he said as soon as she answered the phone on the third ring. On the other end of the phone, Maggie was in her kitchen washing dishes with the old yellow sponge, as if nothing unusual were happening at all in her world. She recognized the voice immediately without question. Her hand trembled slightly, but not enough to drop the phone in the sink. "Maggie, what the hell did you do to me? They took everything from me. I'm stuck here alone. Crystal left me high and dry. Danny too. They're saying you're the one who did all this to me." Maggie stayed silent for a long moment, took a deep breath in, and then replied with a serene, firm voice, as if speaking from a place Marcus could no longer reach or touch. "I didn't take nothing from you, Marcus. I just stopped what you were taking from me for months. Maggie, they want to arrest me for fraud. You said you would always stand by me no matter what. I stood by you until you stopped standing by yourself and me both. Please help me out here. I don't know what to do anymore. Learn from it." She hung up the phone without another word. She gave him nothing more at all. No tears, no apologies, no explanations to make him feel better. It was the first time she allowed herself to think that her husband needed to suffer real consequences to understand the truth of life. Because sometimes pain teaches more than love ever could in a lifetime. That night, Maggie didn't sleep, not out of worry or anguish, but because she sat down to write him a letter. It wasn't a goodbye letter. It was an emotional will. a letter she would leave in the black leather journal on the very last page. It was for him, for when he finally came back home to face her. My dearest Marcus, you were my partner for 32 years. You were my companion, my lover, my best friend in this world. I gave you what I had and what I didn't have to give. I denied myself comfort, rest, and my own dreams for you and us together. And I don't regret it one single bit. I did it all with real love. But you forgot who we were together. You surrounded yourself with snakes and expensive perfume and fancy clothes. And in their eagerness to erase me while I was still alive and breathing, they forced me to wake up to the cold truth. I don't hate you at all. I couldn't hate you even if I tried my hardest. But I am no longer the woman who waits in silence for her husband to remember she exists at all. Now I am the one who teaches you, even if it hurts us both deeply. And if you ever truly repent and change, this letter will be right here waiting. Not to save you from consequences, but so you can't say nobody ever warned you about this path. At the end of the letter, she drew a small heart with a pen. It was the sweetest thing she had left inside to give. Marcus wandered the streets of Vegas completely aimless. He slept in cheap motels on the bad side of town. Sometimes he ate something from a vending machine. Sometimes he didn't eat nothing at all. He had nobody to call up for help. Neither Crystal nor Danny answered their phones anymore. And he knew that his return to California wouldn't be a soft landing at all. It would be a hard crash into reality. Finally, he scraped together enough for a one-way bus ticket back, scared out of his mind, ashamed beyond words, with cold deep in his bones. He knew they were waiting for him, not with open arms, but with legal papers and outstanding debts to settle. Maggie, for her part, was ready for it all to unfold. Her health was deteriorating real fast now. But her soul was clearer than it had ever been in her whole life. She had cut her hair short before the treatment could take it away from her. She did it in her bathroom with regular scissors. She looked in the mirror and said to herself out loud, "Now I look like who I really am inside." Howard accompanied her to her follow-up doctor's appointment. The doctor confirmed that the lymphoma was advancing rapidly through her system. She nodded calmly. "You know something," she said to Howard after. "I was never afraid to die at all. What hurt me was not being able to leave this world in peace. But now I know I will leave with everything finally settled." That night in her bed all alone, Maggie felt a sharp pain in her chest area. She doubled over, but she didn't call nobody for help or dial 911. She just hugged herself tight, murmuring her husband's name, not as a complaint, but as a sad farewell to what used to be. The silence of the storm was just that. The exact moment before the final collapse. The fake calm that comes right before the inevitable end. But Maggie didn't fear the end at all because she had done what she had to do. And Marcus was about to face the debris of the life he himself had completely destroyed. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But let me tell you, you can damn sure teach a grown man what happens when he forgets where he came from and who stood by him. When the Greyhound bus pulled into the Riverside station, Maggie felt no emotion at all about it. She wasn't nervous or excited. She hadn't traveled anywhere to watch him come back. She had traveled through her own pain to close a chapter in her life, not as a wife, but as a witness to justice. At 58 years old, her body was getting weaker by the day, yes, but not her resolve. The physical pain was already part of the daily scenery now. What kept her going was purpose and dignity. She had sold a few things to pay for legal fees. The antique china set, the TV from the living room, and a necklace Marcus gave her on their 10th anniversary. She didn't regret it one single bit. The cost was nothing compared to the peace of mind she was seeking. At a small office downtown, Howard was waiting for the meeting. He had arrived early to prepare all the paperwork. He had called in favors, filed motions, and arranged for Maggie to be present when Marcus gave his official statement. It wasn't legally required at all, but the investigator was the daughter of a woman who had been financially abused by her own husband, so she understood the request without needing too many explanations about it. When Marcus arrived at the office, the officials led him into a plain white room with metal folding chairs. His eyes were sunken deep, his beard was scraggly and unkempt, and his expression swung between exhaustion and panic constantly. He was about to sign documents that would separate him legally from the joint accounts with his wife. But he also knew that by doing so he would have to admit he had managed those accounts with falsified authorization forms. In exchange, the state had agreed not to press criminal charges immediately, but to put him on financial probation, and his credit would be destroyed for years to come. When he sat down in that cold room, the door opened up and Maggie entered slowly. She wore a simple gray sweater, dark jeans, and a scarf over her short hair. She walked slowly but stood up straight with her shoulders back. She held a manila envelope in her thin hands. When she crossed the room, her eyes met Marcus's eyes directly. He suddenly stood up from his metal chair. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice cracking badly. "I came to watch you sign these papers, not as your wife, but as a witness to the truth of it all." The investigator looked between them. "Mrs. Patterson, you have every right to be here as the victim in this case." Marcus looked at Maggie, really looked at her for the first time in months. He saw how much weight she had lost. He saw the scarf covering her head. He saw the tiredness in her eyes. "Maggie, are you sick? That ain't none of your concern no more, Marcus." He closed his eyes tight and felt tears coming. "I messed up everything, didn't I?" "Yes, you did." Maggie approached him slowly, handing him the envelope with steady hands. "Here are some things I thought you might want to keep. Our wedding photo. The first Christmas card we ever sent out together. The deed to the house that I'm keeping, by the way. And here is also the letter I wrote you, not to save you from nothing, but so you understand what you threw away for some trash." Marcus took the envelope, his hands shaking something terrible. "Maggie, I don't know when I lost my way completely." "You lost your way the day you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as an obstacle to your new life." They sat down across from each other. The state investigator came in with more paperwork and explained the legal procedures to follow. Marcus signed the documents with a pen that kept slipping from his sweaty fingers. At that exact moment, someone's phone accidentally recorded part of the exchange between them. The video clip showed Maggie standing tall despite her illness, her eyes wet but strong, saying clearly, "You were my whole world for 32 years, but I was never yours, not really. Today, I finally understand that truth. You weren't born to love me forever, only to teach me how strong I really am when I'm alone." Someone posted the recording to TikTok that same evening. In a few hours, it went completely viral across the whole internet. People commented from all over the country and beyond. "That woman is a queen and a half. That's how you teach a lesson without violence. Dignity don't age one single bit. I hope I'm that strong when I'm her age." Marcus couldn't lift his head up at all. The investigator looked at him without much sympathy. "All right, we're done here for today. You can go now, Mr. Patterson. Mrs. Patterson, you're free to leave as well." Crystal had already skipped town entirely. She didn't wait for nobody or nothing. She disappeared just as she had arrived, without apology, without a conscience, without a soul to speak of. On the way out of the building, Maggie and Marcus walked in silence down the hallway. At the exit, she stopped walking. "This is where we go our separate ways for good." "Maggie," he tried to say, but his voice broke completely apart. "I gave you everything I had to give, including my silence when I should have spoken up. Now I give you the only thing you keep refusing to accept, the complete truth. Will you ever forgive me for what I done?" "I already forgave you, Marcus. The problem is that you haven't forgiven yourself yet, and that ain't my job no more." "Can I do anything at all to fix this mess?" "Yes. Live with what you did and make it count for something good going forward." Maggie turned around and walked away slowly toward Howard's car. She never saw Marcus again in person after that day. That night, Marcus sat alone in a cheap motel room and opened the envelope with trembling hands. The photos were faded but still intact. The letter written in blue ink smelled faintly of her lavender lotion. When he finished reading every word, his whole world crashed down on top of him hard. He fell to his knees on the dirty carpet and cried like he hadn't cried since he was a little boy. Not from punishment but from deep shame and regret. And he knew he had lost something he could never recover ever again in this lifetime. The dignity and love of a good woman. And that justice, when it comes from the one who loved you most, is the hardest kind of all to bear. Marcus returned to nothing. No apartment, no wife, no friends, no dignity left at all. He passed through life like a ghost after that. Nobody asked about him or cared where he went. The only things he brought with him everywhere were the manila envelope with their old photos, and the letter his wife had left him. The rest he had lost, absolutely everything. The city felt grayer and colder than ever before to him. The air was heavy and thick, as if his guilt and shame floated in the atmosphere everywhere he went. He had nowhere to go at all. Crystal wasn't answering any calls or messages. His brother Danny had blocked him on everything, and his former work buddies pretended not to recognize him when they passed on the street. He had been exposed on social media nationwide, mocked by thousands and thousands of people, labeled as the ungrateful husband who stole from his dying wife to take his mistress to Vegas. He walked the streets of the old neighborhood where they used to live together. Riverside was the same as always. The same potholes in the road, the same graffiti on the walls, the same food trucks selling tacos at dusk. But something inside him was no longer the same as before. Every street corner had an echo of her, a memory, a silent accusation. He passed their old favorite restaurant. He remembered when Maggie would save up for weeks just so they could have one nice dinner out together, her face all lit up with joy over a simple meal. She always said, "We don't need fancy things, Marcus. We just need each other, and we'll be all right." And they were all right for a long while, until he decided that wasn't enough for him no more. Maggie was already settled back at home by then. She had returned to her house alone. She didn't need company at all anymore. She had lived her whole life being strong for other people, and now she was being strong for herself. She settled back into her house with the creaky floors, the same tile countertops and the rocking chair that squeaked when she moved in it. She settled into her life like someone returning to the place they should never have left behind. Howard brought her medicine every few days when she needed it. Linda prepared light meals for her to eat when she had an appetite. The closest neighbors looked after her in quiet shifts. Not because she asked for it, but because real dignity is honored while a person is still alive and breathing. She became kind of a neighborhood legend after that viral video. Some young people thought she had stood up to the system. Others thought she was a hero for older women everywhere. Others thought she had faced down evil and won. Only a few people knew the whole truth, and they kept it to themselves out of respect. Maggie didn't talk much about it to nobody. She listened to old Motown music in the afternoons, sometimes sitting on her porch. She watched the neighborhood children play outside in the street. She smiled at them genuinely. She gave them candy when they came by, listening close when they told wild stories about school and their little lives. She had finally recovered her inner peace, but not her physical strength. The lymphoma was advancing slow but steady through her whole body. Every week she seemed more fragile than before. Her clothes hung loose on her shrinking frame. Her hands trembled more and more. But she never stopped moving around her house. She never let herself just give up and lie down. You know what nobody tells you about dying? It ain't the leaving that's hard. It's making sure you leave this world with your dignity intact and your conscience clear. One Sunday morning, Marcus walked slowly to the front of her house. He carried a small bag with fresh flowers inside from the corner store. He had spent the whole night awake wondering if he should go there. He hadn't slept or eaten right in days, but something inside him demanded he try one more time. He didn't expect her to open the door for him. He just wanted to see her one last time, to see if she was still alive and breathing. From across the street, standing under a tree, he saw her sitting in her rocking chair on the porch. She wore an old cardigan and had a blanket draped over her thin shoulders. Her face was gaunt and tired, but not defeated at all. She smiled softly at some children playing nearby with a ball. One of them kicked the ball onto her porch, and she gently tossed it back, waving at the little boy like he was precious. Marcus didn't cross the street to approach. He just watched her from far away with tears running down his face. He felt a huge knot in his throat that wouldn't go away. Walked slowly forward, left the bag of flowers on her porch steps quietly, and left without making a sound. Maggie didn't look up directly, but she felt his presence there. She didn't open the door or call out to him. Not that day anyway. She wasn't ready yet, and maybe she never would be. Over the following weeks, Marcus returned to her street, always at the same time in the morning. He left small things behind each time. Flowers from different shops, her favorite cookies from the bakery, a handwritten note without his name on it. He never dared to knock on the door. He never asked to come inside. He had no right to anymore. He was just paying back a debt without knowing if the debt would ever be considered paid in full. One quiet evening, Maggie picked up her black leather journal, opened it to the very last page, and with a shaking hand, wrote her final entry. It wasn't long at all, just enough words to say what needed saying. My dear Marcus, love is not something you demand from people. It is given freely from the heart. And if you have finally learned that lesson, then maybe you are not completely lost after all. Don't come looking for me when I'm gone from this world. I will be in every mistake you choose not to repeat going forward. In every act of real kindness you do, without expecting nothing in return from nobody. If you want to truly forgive yourself someday, start by being kind to others first. And if you ever manage to see your wife in the eyes of another woman somewhere, don't you dare fail her. That will be my redemption and yours both. She signed it with her full legal name. She folded the letter carefully, put it in a clean envelope, and wrote in black ink on the front, "For Marcus James Patterson." The morning she stopped breathing was bright and clear and peaceful. The sun came streaming through the windows warm and gentle. On her lap were the black leather journal, the sealed envelope, and the blanket she had been knitting for weeks. The neighbors found her surrounded by flowers that the children had been leaving for her all week long. Her face held a calmness that few people ever achieve in life. There was no drama, no screaming, no chaos, only the quiet peace after a long storm. Howard arrived first at the house that morning. He looked at her resting there in silence, gently reached over and closed her eyes for the last time. He didn't cry out loud. He knew she wouldn't have wanted tears from nobody. He knew she had died exactly as she lived her whole life, with complete dignity intact. Linda helped prepare the memorial service with the help of all the neighbors who loved her. It was humble but overflowing with genuine love. They didn't accept expensive flower arrangements, only wildflowers from the park, children's drawings taped to the walls, and the old songs she loved to listen to playing softly. Marcus wasn't notified directly by nobody, but he knew somehow anyway. He felt at the moment the wind changed direction that morning, and something deep in his chest went out like a candle flame. He ran to the house as fast as he could, saw the open front door, and walked in slowly with his heart pounding. There were candles lit everywhere in the living room. Nobody stopped him from entering at all. No one hugged him or spoke to him. He walked over to where his wife's body was lying peaceful and still. He fell to his knees beside her. He touched her cold hands one last time. Next to her body, he found the envelope with his full name written on it in her handwriting. He opened it up with shaking fingers. He read every single word out loud to himself, alone in a broken whisper. He cried, but not like before when he was caught. He cried in complete silence, just like she would have wanted. In a corner of the room was an open wooden hope chest. Inside was an old photo of them on their wedding day with a handwritten note on the back that said in her writing, "I still believe you can be better, Marcus. I always did." Marcus took that photo, pressed it hard against his chest, then went out to the small backyard, and sat in the chair where she used to sit every single evening. He looked up at the clear blue sky and understood something deep and true. He had lost his wife forever, but perhaps, just maybe, he could still find himself somewhere in the wreckage. Days turned into weeks and then months after that. Marcus stayed in that old neighborhood, not in her house but nearby. He rented a small room above a laundromat. He didn't buy new things. He didn't try to rebuild his old life. He just existed there quietly, with an old chair, a black leather journal he read every night, and a wedding photo on the windowsill. Every morning he woke up and read a page from that journal she left. Every night, he sat by the window and looked at the stars, talking to her like she was still there listening somehow. He started real small with his life. He volunteered at the senior center 3 days a week, helping elderly folks with their paperwork and bills. He worked part-time at the grocery store where Maggie used to shop, stocking shelves and helping customers carry their bags to their cars. He never mentioned who he was to nobody. He never told his whole story to anyone. He just showed up every day, did honest work, and went home alone. One afternoon, an elderly woman came up to him in the store. "Young man, why you always so quiet and sad-looking?" Marcus smiled slightly for the first time in many months. "I'm learning how to listen, ma'am. My wife taught me that listening is way more important than talking ever was." The woman nodded like she understood something deeper. She must have been a wise woman. "She was the best woman I ever knew." Years passed by slowly. Marcus never remarried or dated nobody. He never chased after money or status again. He lived simply, humbly, in that small room above the laundromat working honest jobs. He kept every letter Maggie ever wrote to him over the years. He framed their wedding photo. The one where they were both 26 years old, holding hands, smiling like the whole world was full of possibilities. And on the anniversary of her death every single year, he would sit on a bench in the park, surrounded by neighbors and children who had heard the story, and he would tell them all about her. Once upon a time, he'd begin slowly, there was a woman who loved so hard and deep it hurt her. And when that love was betrayed by the man she trusted most, she didn't scream or fall apart. She didn't break into pieces. She just became stronger than steel. She taught me that love isn't about what you get from people. It's about what you give, even when it costs you absolutely everything you got. The children would listen with wide eyes. The older folks would nod their heads, some wiping away quiet tears. And Marcus would end his story the same exact way every single time. My wife didn't leave me with money or property or nothing material. She didn't leave me with a fancy car or a big house. She left me with something way better than all that. She left me with the truth about myself. And the truth is this: real love never dies at all. It just changes its shape. It becomes hard lessons. It becomes better choices. It becomes the person you decide to be after the storm passes. He'd pause, looking up at the sky, feeling the breeze on his weathered face. And every day I wake up breathing. I try my best to be the man she believed I could still become someday. Not the man I was back then, but the man I'm slowly becoming now, one day at a time. The neighborhood kids would clap their little hands. The neighbors would hug him gently. And Marcus would smile, not a sad smile, not a bitter one neither, but a peaceful smile finally, because he finally understood the truth of it all. His wife didn't destroy him on purpose. She saved him from himself. She loved him enough to let him fall hard. And in falling, he learned how to stand up on his own 2 feet again. And in standing, he learned how to really live for the first time. Not for money or status. Not for approval from nobody. But for purpose. For truth. For real love. The kind of love that don't ask for nothing back at all. The kind of love his wife gave him every single day of their marriage together. And now he gave it forward. To every person he met, every senior citizen he helped, every stranger who needed a kind word or a helping hand. Because that's what she would have wanted from him. And in doing that every day, he kept her alive in this world. Not just in memory, but in action and deeds. Not in regret, but in redemption. And when his time finally came, many years later down the road, he died in that same small room, holding that same wedding photo, with a peaceful smile on his lined face. And the neighborhood folks said he looked just like her at the end. Peaceful, dignified, free at last. Because in the end, he didn't just learn the lesson she taught. He became it completely. So listen here. Did this story touch your heart deep down? Where are you watching from right now tonight? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. If this story moved you at all, you can support the channel by leaving a super thanks so I can keep bringing you more real, heartfelt stories just like this one here. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. I truly appreciate your love and support more than you could ever know. You'll find more stories like this right here on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. And before you go, let me tell you something real important. If you're over 50, over 60, over 70 years old watching this right now, I want you to know something. Your life ain't over. Your value ain't gone. Your voice still matters in this world. Don't let nobody make you feel invisible or worthless. Don't let nobody steal from you. Not your money, not your dignity, not your peace of mind. You built everything you got with your own 2 hands and your own hard work. You deserve respect. You deserve protection. You deserve justice when you've been wronged. And if someone in your life is making you feel small, making you feel like a burden, taking advantage of your kindness, that ain't love. That's abuse. And you got every right to stand up for yourself, no matter how old you are, no matter how tired you feel. Maggie stood up at 58 years old while she was dying. If she could do it, so can you. Check on your elderly parents. Check on your older neighbors. Check on that grandmother who lives alone down the street. Make sure they ain't being taken advantage of by nobody. Make sure their bank accounts are safe. Make sure they know they still matter in this world. Because one day, that's gonna be you. And you're gonna want somebody to care enough to check on you too. Peace out, y'all. And remember, love hard, forgive when you can, but never forget your worth. Protect yourself. Stand up for yourself. And never, ever let nobody make you feel like you don't matter no more just because you got some gray hair and wrinkles. You matter. You always mattered. You always will. God bless every single one of you watching tonight. God bless.